the stage is going to be yours.
Okay.
So, welcome everyone to SQL Friday. I didn't change the title, which I said I will. This is anyway SQL Friday number 142. And our star today is Gonzalo Bissio, who will talk about Azure SQL Managed Instance and how we can use it for, if I understand correctly, it's mainly how we can use Azure SQL Managed Instance for analytics. So the things we do with, how can we connect this thing, Azure SQL Managed Instance, to Databricks or Fabric or stuff like that. Things I don't really know much about and I don't really work with, but I'm gonna learn from the best today. So Gonzalo, welcome back to SQL Friday. I'm glad you could come.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So first of all, thank you, Magnus, for having me again. It's a huge pleasure talking to you, talking to the student community, the SQL Friday community. As I mentioned before, we are going to talk about Azure SQL MI and the integration with other analytics tools. Why? Because today, with the AI era, the thing is, the data became very important, and sometimes managed instance have all the transactional information, which is critical for each of the businesses. So the thing is, what can I do? If I have Azure SQL managed instance, and I need to move data, I need to transform data, I need to visualize data, what are the tools or the integrations that I can use? So my name is Gonzalo Bissio. I am from Buenos Aires, Argentina, here on the South Cone. I work now, well, I used to be a Microsoft employee. Now I am working in Precision IT as a data and AI director, owning the data and AI practice. So let's start. I will try to make demos as much as I can because I love showing stuff. But first of all, I will start with an introduction about Azure SQL MI. Why? Because I'm going to talk later about service tiers, about business critical, GP or general purpose. I will talk about Fabric and integration. So I will do a quick introduction of each of the service, all the announcements, because not only it's not only Fabric. Also, I love Azure SQL MI, so I will always talk about Azure SQL MI. This is the family of SQL Cloud databases, the choices that you can choose if you are in Azure, the Azure VMs, normal VMs, Azure SQL MI, Azure SQL Database. Azure SQL MI was released back in 2018. The product team is doing an amazing job publishing all the changes, all the things that they are doing, because they are doing a lot, believe me. We have obviously infrastructure as a service for the VM, because you have the VM, you need to take care about patching, you need to take care about if you're using, sometimes is our enemy, the antivirus and all that stuff. But you will need to take care about all the things that happens within the VM. In Azure SQL Managed Instance, it's more a platform as a service in where you have the instance and everything is managed automatically. The patching, we will talk today about the latest release within Microsoft build yesterday, about the policy versions that you can choose within the portal. I will talk that in a few. Or Azure SQL Database, which is a database as a service. There were some announcements for Azure SQL Database as well, so I encourage you to saw them, because you have more API integrations, among other things, that were introduced here. Vector search for OpenAI and this crazy world of the AI. So, I mean, you can see that. Again, what is the best option in terms of databases? In case, for example, that you have a huge database, more than, I would say, yes, it's true that you have up to 16 terabytes today in business critical and general purpose. But the thing is, I mean, if your database is 15 terabytes, just be careful, because you will not be able to grow more than 16. So pay attention if you're using 10, 12 terabytes of databases. So be careful with this limit. Particularly if you see any limitations in terms of features, for example, I don't know, file tables, There's an entire list of features that are allowed and not allowed in Azure SQL MI. But from my point of view, in case that you want to use cross-database queries jobs, even though Elasticsearch is in GA after a lot of years in Azure SQL Database, well, in Azure SQL MI you can use natively jobs, link servers, CLR, among other things. But here you have at least a high overview about the things that you can see in each of the offerings. So based on that, you can choose what is the best for you or fits your workload, I would say. Let's talk about service tiers. We have in one side general purpose, in the other business critical. There was an announcement which is next gen for the general purpose right now. For example, a huge project internally called Hermes, in where general purpose now it's using premium storage instead of blob storage. So now you can have more IOPS and more performance than before that you used to have blob storage, which was a remote storage. Sometimes the latency hit that particular service tier. So now you can choose, I will show you in a few within the portal that you can choose this. In fact, now you can choose the number of IOPS that you are going to use. Obviously, more IOPS, more cost, absolutely, because you will be having more performance. But as of now, you can choose that. And then you have business critical. It's like a 4 nodes availability group, in where one of the answers for, hey, what can I do if I need to do analytics will be, I will show you in a few how to connect to this secondary replica that will allow you to execute queries on the secondary replica. Yeah, it is true that query storage is not working, but that is a SQL Server limitation. So, I mean, you can have some queries in order to see, hey, but I mean, how is the CPU, the memory, and all that stuff? Are we hitting any limit somehow? But at least you have the option. So here we are talking about options. Hey, I need to do this. Okay, what are my tools, my options? Then I will see what will be the best in case that I need to do analytics, for example, in case that I need to run reports, among other things. But these are the two service tiers that we have today for Azure SQL MI. Again, we have 16 terabytes, but just be careful because you also have 10 DB. We were talking with Magnus at the very beginning, mistakes, and I believe me, I did a lot with SMDB. So be careful with that because you will be sharing this limit with the instance. Sometimes we say, hey, I will run this process. We click start and then boom, that's MDB, and maybe we can bring everything down. So every time that you are sizing an Azure SQL Managed instance, just pay attention to these things. It is not only, hey, the amount of memory, the amount of CPU, but also the storage, up to 16 terabytes. So be careful with the limit in that side. Let me see if I enable this little guy. I can't remember. Or if I do this, yes, nice. Then this hardware configuration, this is, I mean, every time that you choose a service tier, you can choose the standard or the premium series. The most important thing here is the memory per vCore. Obviously, again, every time that I'm talking about computer resources, I'm talking about cost. So if you choose premium series, maybe it's more expensive. But then I will show you in a few on the portal how you can see the cost. You have 3 different options. This will depend on the amount of memory that you need. So you have these different options. And obviously the storage and all that stuff. Always you can just visit the link here that I paste. So you can see the different options, you can see the documentation and all that stuff. Connectivity, why? Because in a few we are going to talk about, hey, I need to connect my Azure SQL MI to different targets. So maybe I talk about private endpoints, private links, public endpoints, ports, and all that stuff. And that is why I put this slide here. So basically, every time that you build an Azure SQL Managed instance, by default, VNet will be chosen behind bars. So automatically, Azure SQL MI will be close to internet. So in case that you want to connect, for example, let's say that I build Azure SQL MI in the VNet, I don't know, SQL Friday, blah, blah. But if there is another service which is using a VNet, on the other hand, I will have to connect somehow. So you can, for example, use pinnings, what is called pinning in Azure, which will be opening the different VNets or creating this relationship between the different VNets. Or you can build everything on the same VNet with different subnets. For example, subnet for Azure SQL MI, subnet for VM, subnet for Databricks, or whatever you're using. Because the thing is, except for Azure SQL MI, maybe other services are open to internet by default, for example, Azure SQL Database, that you can then enable the VNet integration. So pay attention every time that you build something in the cloud. Believe me that I saw some examples that someone forget some rules or ports open, and then the chaos came to life. Believe me that I saw with my own eyes. Um, so these are the ways. For example, we have the VNet, the one that I mentioned for Azure SQL MI. We have public endpoint. I will show you how to enable it. In fact, I use it for Fabric in order to import the data. Then we have private endpoints, which also used for Fabric as well, that obviously everything will be connected internally. You need to create a private endpoint, you need to configure to your service, and then you need to approve that connection. So that is the most secure because everything is on the Azure backbone. Well, then you have status VPN in case that you are connecting your own on-premises data center with the cloud, or you have express route. It depends on the budget. It depends on a bunch of things. So then, what are the latest updates about Azure SQL MI? Well, basically, this one came in November. This was a huge change from my point of view regarding the build or the faster provisioning. Because I remember that the first time that I built an Azure SQL MI back in 2018, I signed for the private preview, and the first time that I built a managed instance, it took like 40 hours to complete. I remember that I clicked create, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And for me, it was like, oh man, I am waiting more than 1 day, and almost 2 days. I was like, oh man, yes, it's true that it's in private preview. Then these days it took more or less, depends on the number of cores, depending if you were creating a business critical or a general purpose. As I mentioned at the very beginning, in general purpose, you have a single node. Now, if you use the next gen, you are using the premium storage. But in business critical, it was for availability group nodes. So it took like 3 to 5 hours, depending more or less, to create the Azure SQL MI. But with this new in November, this new feature wave allows you to create Azure SQL MI in 30 minutes. And I tested myself a bunch of times and with customers as well. You need to make sure that the VNet that you are choosing allows you to use these features. In fact, I will show you in a few in the portal that you will be able to see that your VNet and your Azure SQL MI can use these new features. Some relaxing networking requirements that you can configure for your Azure SQL MI. Another amazing thing is starting and stopping the instance. One of the things that Azure SQL Management had in the past was that, hey, but I am using Azure SQL MI, maybe I am using a dev test, even though you have the dev test subscription in Azure, but maybe you were using a QA instance, and for example, it was Friday, and all the people was leaving, and nobody was using that, so you couldn't stop the Azure SQL MI. Right now, you can with this new way. You just click stop, and boom, that's it. You will be stopping the service. You have the zone redundancy, which means that on every Azure region, you have different zones, up to 3. For example, you are using, I don't know, East US, West US, South Central, North Europe. It depends on the region that you were using. Internally, on the same region, you have up to 3 zones or 3 different data centers within the region. So now we can build Azure SQL MI with different within different regions. And then DTC, if you are using it, among other things, blah, blah, blah. But I am telling you, from my point of view, the most important. Again, we are answering some analytics questions. Okay, we have what we call Azure SQL MI link and the ability to synchronize your on premises, or for example, if we are using VM within Azure or any other cloud provider, and you want to move data to Azure. Why? Well, for example, you're using Power BI and you don't want to use a gateway on the other cloud provider and you want to query directly within Azure. Well, for example, you can replicate your Azure SQL MI, your SQL Server in on-premises directly to Azure SQL MI using distributed availability group, using a certificate. So you don't need to use, for example, a domain account, which sometimes is a problem because maybe you're using one provider and you don't have the domain within the other cloud provider or the data center where you are using your VM, let's say. You can go, I mean, you can fail over and fail back today. I will show you in a few an announcement that happened yesterday about the policy. But as of now, the thing is that today you can configure this, you can fail over, but you can fail back as well to SQL 2022. Can you, for example, use this with SQL 2019, 2016, 2017? The answer is yes. But obviously, you will not be able to fail back to the VM because Azure SQL MI only supports up to date to SQL 2022 to do this bidirectional failover. But in case that you need to, for example, run the reports, or let's say that you build because you have a lot of budget and you build a business critical, you have the primary, you have the secondary, you can use more than one in order to do your reporting and offload those reads that sometimes create blockings, deadlocks, headaches on your OLTP. That happens in our DBA life. But these are options. Or for example, if you're migrating and you say, hey, I want to migrate my SQL Server on premises and I want to migrate it using a failover and that's it. Okay, you can use this option. Obviously, make sure that you are moving the logins and all that stuff, that you know that those kind of items are not moved. You can use DBA tools. I love DBA tools. It's an amazing feature. So congrats to all of the guys that build DBA tools because they saved my life every single day, I will be honest. But then options. This one is another option that you can replicate your database in almost real time. It's a couple of seconds. It depends on the obviously on your networking. It depends on the number of changes that you are making that you made on your database. But this is an amazing another option. Honestly, I tested. Obviously, I mean, there are some trace flags that you can enable in order to optimize the way on how SQL Server is synchronizing because it is using behavior automatic seeding. So there are some things that you can change to improve the synchronization between your VM and Azure SQL MI. But this is a different option and it's very easy to set up. I mean, I have some, I would not say problems, but some challenges moving big databases because you can't do like backup and restore. Like, for example, you do the backup, you split the backup in 10, 20, 30 pieces because it's a huge one. But here you can use automatic seeding. Again, just pay attention to the trace flag that you can use and monitor the synchronization. Then, well, news. I love news. So the first one is the update policy, as I mentioned before. I will show you this in a few. That today you can choose if you want to have Azure SQL MI 100% compatible with SQL 22 only. That means that if there is a CU in SQL 2022, it will be applied to the managed instance. You can use, for example, the MI link that I showed you before. But there is another option which is continuous, which is that some new features will be applied to Azure SQL MI, but they will not be compatible with SQL 2022 as of now. So in case that you want to use the latest features without SQL 2022, you can choose this. It's a one way. So if you choose this, that's it. You cannot roll back. So be careful with that. In case that you are using MI link, in case that you want to restore your database directly to SQL 2022. So be careful with that because when you go, you cannot roll back. So basically, you can choose up to SQL 22, or you can choose the other option to have the latest feature. I will show you in a few when you create the Azure SQL MI. And the other one, well, I talk about next gen or next generation for the general purpose, but also you have an option up to 12 months to use some hours, some free hours of Azure SQL MI in case that you want to test the service. In case that you say, okay, hey, I mean, I can use a dev test, but I need to pay something. It's true that you can move your license and you can use what is called hybrid benefit. It's true that you can use a secondary replica benefit. I will show you that in a few. But also you have the possibility to use Azure SQL MI as free in case that you have a new customer or in case that on your company somebody wants to use Azure SQL MI, but for some testing purposes, because they are not 100% sure about the service itself, you can use the free option. So we have data in Azure SQL MI. What can I do? Different options. We talk about Azure SQL MI link in order to offload or to move or to synchronize or to replicate, because you can also use transactional replication. I didn't put it here because I have people that loves replication and I have people that hates replication. So I don't want to, you know, sometimes it's difficult when you talk with data professionals who loves replication, and you talk with data professionals who hates replication. So, I mean, you have that option. You can replicate, you can use transactional replication as publisher, distributor, subscriber in Azure SQL MI in case that you love it. You can use it as well in case that you want to move some articles from your source, or in case that you are using Azure SQL MI and you need to move that data to other place where you can use transactional replication. I didn't put it here as an option, but you have it. Business critical service tier, we already talked about that. I will do a very quick demo on how to do that, how to accomplish that. Copy the database to other Azure SQL MI using the copy command. Well, basically, let's say that you have a QA instance, or for example, a report in Azure SQL MI. You don't want to pay business critical, but you need a second Azure SQL MI because you are seeing that the reads are hitting your transactional system. You can use a copy command that will be that, hey, I want to copy this database from here to here, period. You can do this in the portal, you can do this using PowerShell, you can do this using Transact, in where you can say, hey, I have this database on this to this other part, period. Obviously, you have the move operations as well, but that will be moving. So you will be, deleting the database within the source, but you have the copy and the ability to move one thing to another one. And then the MI link, the one that I mentioned. But now let's talk a little bit about Fabric, because we can talk hours and hours about Fabric. What I'm talking to Fabric, because I'm going to show some stuff in Fabric. And if I don't explain you at least an introduction about Microsoft Fabric, you'll say, hey, what is this? Well, basically, Microsoft Fabric is a software as a service platform. Here you have some advantages, but the thing is that you will be having everything in a single product. You will have different, what they are called experiences, data engineer, data warehouse, data science, Power BI. You can have everything on the same place. As we discussed with Magnus at the very beginning, there was, for example, yesterday, well, there were a bunch of announcements. So, for example, the Snowflake integration and the iceberg thing within Snowflake, we have something, I'm going to show you how to do that, called shortcut, which means that you will be reading data but without moving it. For example, to other cloud providers like AWS, GCP, now Snowflake. There is another feature called mirroring. I don't know who chose that name, because they say, hey, it's the mirror in SQL Server. No, it's not. It's a new change data capture in where you can track all the changes that are happening in different sources and you're moving the data into Fabric. It's a real-time experience. In fact, another thing that was introduced 2 days ago was the real-time analytics, the new feature in order to read, for example, different queues, even have Azure SQL databases and chain data capture, among others, sources. But the idea or the main idea is to have everything on top of one storage layer called one lake. So everything will be in one lake. Basically, every time that you put a file, behind bars, you are using Parquet, and you can transform that in Delta Parquet, which is an open source. Um, and then you can create tables. For example, you can use something called One Lake Explorer for the people who loves Excel and CSV and all that stuff. You can just directly copy and paste into One Lake using something called One Lake Explorer directly from your machine, or laptop, or whatever you're using. Again, everything has a button that say create a report in Power BI. Obviously, you can create whatever, in whatever experience that you are, you can create a report or you can do some visualization. This is good for the business people that are checking all the time things. Um, but from my point of view, there are amazing things. Here you have, for example, you want to integrate data, well, or for example, I will talk in a few about Medallion, which is a very good thing that I work a lot with customers, meaning that you have different layers. For example, you have the bronze, the silver, and the gold. Some people use bronze, silver, gold. Some other people use refine and all that stuff, transfer data. It depends, but the idea is to have different layers of the data. For example, you have the bronze, you have the silver, you have the gold, the different, layers of the data. For example, on the bronze, you are living on the data. On the silver, you are adding some schema to that data because you are building some products. And then you have the gold in where you can use different applications to query that data or reports. Or for example, you are a data science and you are building your models and you need the data or different data because maybe you need the raw data, which is on the bronze, or maybe you need, because sometimes, I work with different customers about, hey, I need to build a data product, but the thing is I have different sources. Not all of them are SQL based. For example, maybe we have all audios, we have images, we have videos that we need to transform later. And you can have whatever you want. Structured, non-structured, semi-structured data, you can have everything in one lake today, which is this storage layer. But again, if I talk about Azure SQL MI, we are here and we are going to see how to use pipeline, how to use shortcuts, how can we use Polybase, for example, to export data. This feature is called CITAS. I will show you in a few in a demo that, for example, using CITAS, you can directly insert data, for example, on the bronze layer. So you can, for example, create a job in order to insert data to create what we call external table in order to move the data. Please use filters, do in an incremental way. Don't do what I'm going to do in a few, like select star or select columns from table. Directly, boom, try to find a column, date column, key column, or whatever column that you can use in order just to move the late. Obviously, there is a synchronization step the first time that you are going to move everything, but after that, try to move not everything, but only the incremental parts. Um, or then, if you are a Spark person or you like to code with the Scala, PySpark, or whatever language that you want to use on the notebook, you can use notebook as well within Fabric. And then, well, obviously, as we discussed, we use reporting in case that, for example, you're using SQL pools or you're using your warehouse today. Well, you can use SQL directly to the gold layer, for example, on the warehouse experience. Or if you're a data science and you love using notebooks again and different models, you can use the data science experience. But let's go to the funny part. Let's go to the demo time. Um, well, this is Fabric. This one is another announcement that happened this week. This is called Task Flow. This is obviously powered by Airflow. So here you can create your own task flow. For example, in my case, I will show you a few that I move some data using a pipeline. If you're familiar with Data Factory Synapse, it's exactly the same here. But then you can add some items, notebooks, data flows, in case that you use data flows, notebooks or another pipeline. Let's say that you are creating a new flow and you can start adding some stuff. Here, I mentioned about the mirror. I will show you in a few. A snowflake here that was announced a couple of weeks back. Cosmos DB. A mirror means that you are enabling change data capture. So you have the tables, you choose the tables, and then you move only the changes. But let's start with our topic of the day, which is Azure SQL MI, that I love a lot. So let's start. So let me first show you on the portal the announcement about GP and about the new policy. So this is very simple. When you create, wait, sorry, I am in the wrong directory. So every time that you create an Azure SQL MI, it's very easy. If you never done that, you click Manage Instances, you click Create. So here we have the different options. So you would choose, I don't know, I'll choose a name, the region that I mentioned before. Again, so here you will see if you want to use the latest features, you must see that your subscription and the region that you want to choose is ready for the November feature wave. This one that I mentioned about the 30-minute build. Then, well, it belongs to Instant Pool. Instant Pool came to GA a few weeks ago. This is the possibility to have, for example, to pay a 16 core Azure SQL MI, but internally you have, let's say, four Azure SQL MI with 4 cores. This is for dev and test purposes. I mean, you can pay for a 16, but internally you use up to, I don't know, 8 for the one that you want to use. You can use different vCores, let's say, for each managed instance. I think that, let me see. Yes, of subnets. Well, let me see. 1 second. Again, you need to make sure that, oops, the control failed. That if you're using an existing VNet, you need to make sure that your VNet is ready again for the feature wave. Let me see, because maybe I hit a limit. Yes, I hit a limit. Okay, no worries. And then I configure, for example, as I mentioned before, the next gen is here. So every time that you click here, you will see that now you will be able to choose the IOPS for your instance. For example, let's say that you are monitoring let's say that you are migrating from SQL Server and you are monitoring the IOPS that your VM is using. Well, if you use GP before, I mean, the number of IOPS depends on the size of the file of the database that you have within GP, but now it's different. Now, for example, you can choose the amount of IOPS that you can use. And then, well, here we have the premium series and all that stuff. Remember that it depends on the number of gigabytes for memory that you can use. But I want to show you the other option, which is new. Well, Entra authentication. We have the networking part, the VNet that I told you before, the TLS that you are using. Obviously, the latest is the one. We have public endpoint. I will explain in a few that you can enable the public endpoint. You need to open within your NSG or your networking security group the port, a specific port, in order to enable this. And then we have the collation. For example, let's say that you are not using this collation and you need to use a different one. Well, you can see here if your collation is supported here or not. For example, in Azure SQL Database, you don't have this option to choose. Here we have a group, which is a different story, but what I wanted to show you is this little guy. SQL Engine updates or update policy. This one was released yesterday. We have the option of always up to date. which is, as I mentioned, in case that you have a new feature which is not released in SQL 2022, and you want to use that option, you can click it here, again, one way, or you can use, by default, it will always be enabled the SQL 2022, which is new. But you can choose, again, one way. Review create, and boom, you will be creating the new Azure SQL MI. Again, if you want to connect to Azure SQL MI, or, I mean, from the source, or you add the bidding if it is a different binet, or you can build everything as I did, for example, on the same binet. You will see that, for example, here I have a subnet for managed instance, other for VM, other for Fabric because I enabled private endpoint in order to connect, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so we have the Azure SQL Managed Instance right now. So we connected already, but let me show you because I already did it. So the first case is that we want to offload the reads to a secondary instance. So basically what you need to do is just to use, if you're using, for example, in availability groups, the read routing mechanism, well, here you need to do exactly the same. And that's it automatically, you will be pointing to the secondary. I am using Entra, Azure, aka Azure Active Directory in the past, to connect. And then you will see some differences with the primary, for example, this one, which is that the agent is disabled. It's not running as the primary. For example, query store is in read mode. So as you can see here, it's read only. Let me use this one here. So you will not be able to see, hey, I am running a query and I am not seeing in query store. Well, yes, because it is in read only. And then you can run your normal query. For example, I have an example here. I am, wait, because you will think that I am not running this on the secondary. So let's create some new queries. So basically, I'm using a new all on my fab product. I mean, the tables, I am using AdventureWorks DW, this one. So as you can see on the row count, I mean, it's not huge. So this is the biggest table, the one that I'm querying right now. I will run the query. Some queries that you can use in order to see, then I will share this to you. For example, obviously the exec request, this will be like the SP who is active, at least the one that is consuming more CPU right now. Or then you can use, the DB resource stats in order to see the CPU, among other things. You can build, for example, your own reports in order to see the CPU usage, the IO, and the memory, in case that you are seeing that this is exploding. I mean, this will be like an availability group. So sometimes maybe you are using availability group and you see that your reads on the secondary is preventing the synchronization mechanism, and you are seeing that the primary is being, being impacted because maybe you are blocking some objects, or maybe the secondary is not able to handle the read operations and the normal availability group operation because of the number of threads, for example, among other things. But the good thing is that you have this option. Hey, I have business critical and I have the option to move this to the primary to the secondary. So let's go to the other one. So let's start talking about MI, let's talking about Fabric as well. So Fabric, I mean, how can you connect fabric.microsoft.com? You will see, in fact, every time that you open Power BI, you will see a Fabric icon today. You have the different experiences, as I mentioned. I would not explain all of them because this is not a Fabric session, but if in the future you want, I would explain them to you. For example, on my case, Obviously, I will move some data in Fabric. I mean, everything, you have different layers between codes. For example, in Fabric, everything will be managed or saved in something called workspace, like Power BI, it's the same. But to this workspace, if you want to add some resources, you will be adding what is called Fabric capacity. You can use the trial, which is what we call Fabric capacity F64. As you can see here, I'm using a trial one. You can enable this by default, so you don't need to pay anything. So you have the Fabric capacity, which will be the resources. We can talk hours a lot about, hey, what does it mean, Fabric capacity? What will be the difference between the notebooks and the data warehouse and the data science and Power BI? Because we are sharing resources, how that would happen. Well, it's the exact same thing that we have in the past about DTUs or DWs in SQL Pub. But here it will be the same. And in my case, I have a workspace, which is SQL Friday. I will start with the normal one. Well, I wanted to show you the task flow powered by Airflow here within Fabric. But in my case, I mean, this one is basically a data pipeline. It's like you have, for example, today, again, as I mentioned before, in Data Factory or in Synapse, in case that you're using it. I mean, you can just click and use the copy assistant. And here you have different options, different sources, different targets in order to move data. In our case, it will be Azure SQL MI. Here you have all the options for the sources. In my case, here we have our friend Azure SQL MI. Here you need to use your Azure SQL MI. In my case, I use the public endpoint. For some reason, I was not able to configure something that I am checking with the product team because maybe I made some issues because they say, hey, Gonzalo, you're using the public endpoint. Why? Before that question comes, I will tell you the truth. Because for some reason, I was not able to use. In fact, on the name here, you will see that there is a public thing. See? So I don't know if yet, because I configure the endpoint in order to use this, but for some reason it's not yet, at least for me, maybe I made a mistake or something like that. But I enable the public endpoint only for data. Basically, you need to add this beautiful, oops, the control is not working as I expect. 3332, where, okay, let's go to the virtual network and let's go to the subnets. And you will see here, for example, that there is something called security group or network security group NSG for my Azure SQL MI. And I created an inbound security rule in order to add here connections to this port, the ones that will be used by the public endpoint. So we copy this because we need to use this one, which is the public endpoint, obviously. And then I need to put here Venture works. And I am using organizational account, means that I am using Entra for the connection. We click next. And then we can choose the table or the query that I'm going to use in order to move from one side to another one. This one, we are doing basically a pull mechanism from the Fabric. We are asking the data to the Azure SQL MI. The other way will be just to do pushing, like using CTAS, that I will show you this in a few, I don't know, dim employee, whatever. In the meantime, if there is any question, feel free to chat. Let's see. Thank you. Sorry, I just
No questions.
any resource or notebook? No, I will send this to Magnus, all the demos and the slides, so he can share them to you. So here you have the preview for the table. Then, I mean, as I mentioned, we have on top of everything in Fabric, we have what we call one lake. But then we have, for example, the lakehouse experience, and then we have the warehouse. You can move this one to the warehouse or to the lakehouse. It depends on what you're building. In my case, I will move this to a lakehouse. I will create a new table. Um, and then I can enable partitions in case that I am moving, different partitions within the source and the target if I want. Come on, because it will say, hey, you didn't do any mapping. Yes, I know. Okay, so we have on the source the columns, on the destination the other columns, the data type, etc., etc. We click next. We have the source, we have the target, which is the lakehouse. Save and run. Boom, and this will start. It's a pipeline. Again, it's like, well, I am running two pipelines. Nice. Let's break some stuff. And that's it. With this, we move data from the Azure SQL MI directly into the lakehouse in Fabric. So basically, if you want to see this, as I mentioned, that I have a workspace, which is SQL Friday. And here you will see all the resources inside the workspace. For example, Gonzalo, I want to create different folders because I have different projects. Can I do that? The answer is yes. You can. Here, folder, and you can just move all the resources within this folder. For example, I want to see the lineage. Can I see that? The answer is yes. You can see all the resources, how they are, which is here, how they are connected, for example. But let me show you real quick the lakehouse. And I want to see if I have time to show you the citas, which is the most interesting. And then here, when you will see that I will be leaving here.
I don't hear you anymore, Gonzalo. No.
Now you hear me?
Yes, now I hear you. Perfect. Wonders of technology, right?
Yeah, something happened. Okay, I will use my computer audio. I don't know, for some reason the airport lost connectivity. Let me see. No. Do you hear me now from here?
Yes, I do.
Ah, nice. Okay, sorry. Well, something happened with this, you guys. Okay, so finally we move everything to the lakehouse right now. Let me go refresh. So basically we have here now the tables, the team employee, the fact finance. You will see that the tables are already here. I already moved them from MI to the lakehouse. But then I talked to you about citas. So let's go to the citas. Okay, in order to enable this, we have two ways. Or we use something that maybe can help you to Databricks as well, which is moving the data and creating an external table from the Azure SQL MI to a blob storage directly, and then you can mount that particular storage to Databricks and do the transformation and do all the stuff that you want to do. Or directly you can create the external table within Fabric. So how can you do that? So first of all, let me just close this because I need the regular version right now. So let's open this. As you can see, the agent is running here. I was not lying to you. Come on. 1 second. In the meantime, that this wants to open. Come on. But I will show you in a notepad in the meantime. what are we going to do? So first of all, we need to enable what is called allow poly-based export. You can use, for example, the bash within the portal. How can you do that? Well, you can come here, you can click here, this button, which is the bash, or you can use PowerShell within a VM or your VM. Make sure that you download the commandlets for this. This one will open a Cloud Shell. Come on. So then you need to move, let's say that you have multiple subscriptions. First of all, you need to select the ones that you need to use. Come on. So in my case, I will use my subscription. Basically, with this select AC subscription, I am moving to the subscription that I want to make the change. And the parameter that you are going to use is this one, which is Azure SQL MI server configuration option, and then allow poly-based export to 1. You cannot change this from the management studio. So let's see. So if I click new query, where am I? Let's see. Okay, when this finishes, I already enable it, obviously. So as you can see, for example, let me use the sum, and we have the option in 1. Oops, my control key is dying. What is next? Well, it's like, I don't know if you're familiar with SQL pools and you created external tables before, but it's exactly the same. So basically, first you create a file format, then you create a scope credential. So basically here, I mean, this is the case that we are just pushing data directly into the lakehouse for Fabric. So we have the file format itself, which is Parquet, because by default, I mean, in Lakehouse, you can use Parquet or CSV today. The manage identity credential. So basically, what you need to do is just go to the Fabric, go to your workspace, and then on the manage access, obviously, you need to enable here the identity here for the system assigned managed identity or the service principal, whatever works for you, one or the other. First, you need to enable it so you can see the managed instance as an entity within Azure. And then you need to add permissions here. For example, you need to search for your Azure SQL MI name, and you will see here that, I mean, in my case, I enable both, but you can use your service principal or your managed identity. I mean, in my case, I use managed identity, and then you need to assign permissions. We have different roles here, so in case that you want to see the different roles, I can share the information if you want, because you can use viewer, contributor, or admin. It depends what you are doing, basically. The link is this one, but then I will share this to Magnus so he can forward it to you. Depending on what you want to do, you have different roles here. So we have the permissions for the MI to connect to the lakehouse and to create tables. And then we enable the poly-based feature. So what next? Basically, we have the file formats. It will be Parquet. We have the managed identity for the Azure SQL Managed Instance. We create an external data source, which is, this is very important because kudos to Jovan Popovic because he did an amazing post about Azure SQL MI. You need to change some stuff that I will show you in a few. So basically you need to get the location. So how can you do that? Well, basically you need to go to Fabric in case that you want to move to the lakehouse. And here you have the files. You need to click here and you click properties, and you are going to use this location path. But as you can see, it's different from the one that I show you. Why? Because you need to change some stuff that it is not yet supported within Azure SQL MI. Basically, unify the ABF. I need to use some because you are going to hate me. So basically, you need to change this ABF and you need to change this to use blob instead DFS. So be careful with that, otherwise it would not work. So you create an external data source. I already create them, so I will show you that. Hey, did you do that? Right, small thing. I need to use the database because everything will be on the database side. And I missed one step, which is creating the key here. Let me see if I have it here or I will add later, because you need to create a master key within the database in order to make this work. So I forgot to paste this. Oh, never mind. So then you create the file format. Then you create the scope credential in order to connect to the lakehouse. Then you create the data source, which is, again, as I mentioned, the one lake for the files. And then you have the credential, the one that we created before, which is this one. And then you create an external table, SQL Friday, for example. And here we are using on the lakehouse, the folder, which is fact finance, and then we have the table, which is the one that I choose by default. Please don't do that. Don't do these kind of things. Try to use where, I don't know, date between, date higher than, I don't know, ID higher than, so you not move everything. You can insert this one. Sorry. Export. I can't remember if I clean this up or not. Let me see. I didn't create the data source. Nice. Let me see. I believe that I already created those. Okay. So let me see if this works. And then this will run. This will export the data. And then let's see if it is still running. Fact finance tables. And you will be pushing and exporting data from the Azure SQL MI to the lakehouse. And then you will see fact finance table and you will see the Parquet file. So basically you have the Parquet file and here you have two ways. Or you create a new table, for example, like, I don't know, SQL Friday table. So you transform this Parquet into a new table, for example, and then you can query it, for example, or you can leave it as a file. And then if you like, for example, the notebooks, you can, for example, do something like this, the one that I'm going to show you in a few, because we need to close. I know we are 2 minutes late. But for example, you can create a data frame and you can read directly the Parquet, directly from the notebook. So here we have SQL, which was inserted into a lakehouse, and then we are using notebooks. So for example, I am displaying the data frame. There is some beautiful, beautiful feature called Data Wrangler. See if I can run this. It's a beautiful feature, honestly, in case that you want to do some cleanup on the information. This will be for the data analysts in case that you want to clean up some data in a very easy manner and you just want to do a couple of clicks in order to remove duplicates and to add a lot of things. Oh, this will take up to 1 minute because this one was not up, sorry. But let me see if there is any question in the meantime. I am not seeing question, which is great, or not, or you don't understand anything. So feel free to add any question. If I have luck and this one finishes before, let me see. Okay, so is there any question? I mean, the other demo that I do have is about using the same, but instead of using the lakehouse, I am using a blob storage. And then you can create what is called shortcut. Let me see if I have the lakehouse here. And then, for example, you want to click here and create new shortcut. Obviously, you are again, pushing the data from Azure SQL MI to the blob storage, which is this one. And then you can configure the blob storage, and then you will be able to directly query that information. Or for example, as I mentioned before, hey, I am using Databricks. Well, you can mount that particular blob storage into, or that data lake into your cluster, and you will be able to query the information. But we are almost 5 minutes later, so if you have any question, feel free to do that question. Yes, next time I will start before. Okay, workshop in progress, running, amazing. You can click Data Wrangler, and you will see the data frame that I created before. And here you have the option to do whatever you want with your data frame. You have different columns, let's say, and you have different options, for example, as I mentioned, to remove, find and replace, and drop duplicate, for example, drop missing values, etc., etc. You can do different formats. You can use different formulas. You can click, for example, on the column and see the summary here, the rows, distinct values, etc., etc. In case that you want to play with information, you can use this one. I don't know. Want to remove duplicates, and you will see here the code, for example, that you can add into your notebook. Obviously, I didn't talk about Copilot. Can you use Copilot in notebooks? The answer is yes. I can show you that in a different session, which will be great because I love Copilot. And that's it. I know that I have some other content, but we are 5 minutes late. So if you have any question, I will send these slides and the demos later. Again, you have my contact in case that you have any questions. I don't know if there's any question on the chat. Nothing.
Nothing in the chat, and I'm looking in the
Thanks.
YouTube chat as well, and it's empty. So, as you said, either everything was clear or everything was too much to take in. I posted the link to the YouTube live stream, so if anyone wants to go back to a section and watch it again, and if it was done too fast and you didn't quite follow, then everything is on there. So feel free to watch that. And with that, I guess I'm gonna stop the YouTube broadcast to begin with. So goodbye, YouTube. I'll see you next time.